76 hours after 4 University of Idaho students were found stabbed to death in an off-campus house, barely off campus, by the way, we heard our first public comments from law enforcement and the school today, just moments ago. The first comments in person other than, statements being released by email or social media. This would be the first time they would answer questions about what happened both during the crime and the days following, where students, staff, families, the entire town of Moscow wondered about whether they were safe. And that was one of the things we learned today because we were told by police, well, this was without explanation as to how they came to this conclusion, knowing they didn't have a murder weapon. But what we did learn today, I want to bring in Morgan Romero here about this because watching this press conference, two things that stood out to me. The first one being what they said very early on in this press conference, saying, we cannot say there is no threat to the community. After saying just yesterday in a press release, we determined early in the investigation, we do not believe there is an ongoing threat for community members. Evidence indicates this was a targeted attack. Then today, Chief Fry saying, we cannot say that.
Well, to his point about it being an isolated and targeted attack, he did double down on that. He still believes it's an isolated and targeted attack. However, walking back this statement that there is still potentially a threat to the community, that this person, this suspect who did this, by the way, they said suspect, not suspects. Sounds like it is one person that they're after, is still out there on the loose. They didn't say whether they knew who that person was, whether they were tracking them, surveilling them. The fact that person is still out there makes them now say that there is still a threat to the community. Take a listen.
We still believe it's a targeted attack, but the reality is there's still a person out there who committed 4 horrible, horrible crimes. So I think we got to go back to there is a threat out there still, possibly. We don't know. We don't believe it's going to be to anybody else, but we all have to be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're watching out for each other.
And we just heard Doug and Shira talking about this too. There was a Vandal alert sent out talking about telling people to shelter in place, and then that was lifted. Police confirmed the suspect used a knife. Previously, they had said something like a knife. They also said that they believe 2 other people lived at the home where this happened. Those people were not hurt. They were home at least at the time police responded. We don't know if they were there when this attack happened. Police saying today they do not believe there was forced entry. There was no damage to anything. In fact, when they got there, a door was still open. All 4 deaths were ruled homicides, and authorities again calling it an isolated, targeted attack. We want to throw up that picture again of the victims. This is them on your screen. Ethan Chapin, 20 years old from Conway, Washington. Kaylee Gonsalves, 21 years old from Rathdrum, Idaho. Madison Mogan, 20 years old from Coeur d'Alene. And Zaina Kernodle, 20 years old from Post Falls. I also want to tell you guys what we also heard from police was they do have a little bit of background information about what led up to this. They don't know how it all unfolded at the home in the early morning hours of Sunday. But take a listen to what Moscow Police Chief James Fry had to say about what happened prior.
We have learned that Ethan and Xana were at a party on campus, and Madison and Kaylee were at a downtown bar. They arrived home sometime after 1:45. If anyone in our community or across our nation has any information about these times or the victim's whereabouts, please call our tip line at 208-883-7180.
And some background information. Police found the 4 students dead on Sunday after responding to a call about an unconscious person at a home on King Road in Moscow. That's where they found those 4 victims. As you mentioned, Brian, just less than a mile from campus, authorities say the person who was reported unconscious originally is one of the 4 victims. There were some rumors swirling about that it could be a potential, 5th person or the suspect. That is not the case. It is one of the victims. I want to also point out that University of Idaho President Scott Green was really emotional.
Yes.
He choked up right in the beginning of his statements during the press conference, holding back tears and calling them bright lights and saying that this has been really impossible for the community.
Yeah, it's true. It was a very emotional time for him. But I want to focus on the other thing that stood out to me, too. Take a look at that, is because this is something that everybody in the community, Moscow community, the Vandal community, the state of Idaho has been clamoring for some sort of communication from the police department into this investigation, this no threats community thing. What Chief Fry then said this afternoon about how, we should have been better about this.
Yeah, I mean, I have his quote right here. He said, he was asked by several reporters, why were you guys not pushing out more information earlier? Why did you not hold this press conference on Sunday when this information came out, when you found the victims at noon? Why did you not get in front of the camera and give us what you knew? He said, we had a lot of info coming in. We tried to push information out, but, quote, the reality is I should have been standing here a day or so ago. So sort of falling on his sword and saying that he kind of regrets that.
Yeah, it's surprising with this press conference. We expected a little bit more from this, expected maybe a possible suspect. We do not have one. Even a description of a possible suspect. We do not have that, or a location of a murder weapon. None of that has been found or investigated.
I'm really glad you pointed that out. They said, we don't know identity and location of the suspect. We don't have a location of the knife, again, specifying it is a knife, or any clothing worn by the suspect. They have 25 plus investigators working this case. Moscow police, the sheriff's office up there, Idaho State Police, the FBI.
And they're looking at all leads, as he said, including social media. We've been hearing, and even was asked about this Twitch video that has been put out there. So they're looking at everything. Yeah,
ex-boyfriends, any relationships. I mean, they're not ruling anything out. And so again, as you just saw, they encourage anybody with any information to please reach out so they can track down this suspect and bring justice to these families and these victims.
I do not know, though, if this press conference, this news conference, assuaged any fears, though, or concerns about how they're handling this because of that delay in communication and then coming forth and saying, we still got nothing.
No, I don't think it did. I think by saying, I should have been here a day or so ago, he was exactly right. I mean, this is what families and students at the University of Idaho, the ones that Andrew Bartline, our crew up in Moscow, have been talking to, saying, how can I feel safe? How can I go to class? Class is resumed. How can I go to an athletic game? How can I walk around this town knowing this person is still out there? And I agree with you, Brian. It didn't really, help any of that.
Also pointing out, University of Idaho football team is playing in Pocatello this weekend for their game. That's still scheduled as far as we know. There is a vigil tonight in Coeur d'Alene at
6 p.m.
6 p.m. and then tomorrow on the campus of Boise State University at the Big B there on the south side of the administration building. Thank you very much, Morgan. We'll be right back.